everybody. Today we're debating the definition of atheism, and we are starting right now. Ladies and gentlemen, thrilled to have you here for another epic debate, as today we have good old TJump back on, as well as Blake Speed, who's been a guest in the past as well. Two experienced debaters hashing out the definition of atheism. And if it's your first time here, consider hitting that subscribe button, as we've got a lot more debates coming up that we are very excited about. So for example, you'll see at the bottom right, there is a thumbnail for an up-and-coming debate that's actually going to be tomorrow between Dr. Jeff Zwierink and Skydive Phil. So that's going to be a lot of fun. And then on Tuesday, Kent Hovind and Mark Drisdale have their endgame debate. By endgame, we mean it's the last one we're hosting of these guys. It's the third of they've got a trilogy of debates after this one. And that's when we're like, hey, on other channels, go for it. But now we're saying no more, you two. All right, so it's going to be a lot of fun, folks. Really excited. And also, though, want to let you know, today's format, if you have any questions during it, feel free to shoot your question into the live chat as we try to make it as interactive as possible. So if you just tag me with an @ModernDayDebate in your question, I will see that more easily, pull those questions into a list, and then you also have the option to do a super chat if you'd like, in which case it'll push your question to the top of the list for Q&A, and it'll also allow you to make a comment during the question and answer. But we, as always, would give the debater a chance to respond to your comment and ask that you be your usual friendly selves in all of your questions and comments. So with that, it's going to be a flexible 8 to 10 minute opening from each speaker, followed by open conversation. I think that's what people most enjoy. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We are going to get the ball rolling. TJump, if you are willing to go first, I should mention too, by the way, everybody, for the borders, and this is, forgive me if Blake, if you prefer to go first, if you guys decided that, that's totally okay. Oh, do you prefer to go first? Perfect. That works perfect for me. Thanks so much. Appreciate it. And want to let you know, folks, each of the gentlemen have an atheism plus, or I should say negative atheism or positive atheism next to their name. That only means basically positive atheism, meaning that you think atheism would be defined as making the assertion that there is no God. Negative atheism saying you don't go that far, you just lack a belief. And so that's Tom's position, namely that atheism is lacking a belief. And with that, Blake, thanks so much. The floor is all yours. I've got the timer set for 10 minutes.
All right. So thanks again, James, for having me on, and Tom for agreeing to have this discussion today. So the way I want to frame today's question is, what should the definition of atheism be? So in order to answer that question, I want to kind of prime us with a helpful concept or metaphor, or what it is the concept of a language game. And so when we're thinking about the definitions of words, we can understand the meanings of words or phrases by examining the concept of a language game. Words have their meaning as a result of the rules of the game being played, where these are metaphors for our forms of language and the actions into which they are woven. So if we're thinking about definitions as rules to a game, we're thinking about how some sets of rules can be better than others. And within a game, we have some sort of aim. What are we trying to achieve within that game? And so I think that for the language game that we're going to be examining for the theist and atheist dichotomy is one in which we're trying to answer the question, does God exist? Or we're trying to answer the question, are there any gods? So these are two different ways, two distinctions. It's a distinction that we can draw. So we can say that atheism in the wide sense is the belief that there aren't any gods, and that atheism in the narrow sense is the belief that the God of Western monotheism, the God of the capital G, omnipotent, omniscient, omnibenevolent God, doesn't exist. And so, what we want our game to do is try to get at the truth for its own sake, via a discussion. So the rules of our game should help us better achieve that goal. The dialectic method is a language game aiming to use discourse between two opposing views, to establish the truth of a reasoned argument, through reasoned argument. So I'm contrasting this with something like a debate method, where the method that would be like a dialectic method, but instead you would also have things like rhetoric and appeals to emotion. I want to put those aside and actually try to answer the question for its own sake. This is also opposed to something like um, an heuristic method, which is one where two opposing sides try to defeat the other one, and the aim isn't really to get at the truth. So you would find this in like a court of law. So you have a prosecution and a defense. And so the defense's aim is to defend its client, and the prosecution's job is to try to convict the defendant. The search for truth for its own sake has taken place beforehand. This is also contrasted with something like a didactic method, where the truth is already presumed and we're trying to teach it to someone through some sort of systematic methodology. So we can ask ourselves two questions here. What sort of thing is atheism, and what do we want? What should the term atheism do? So let's start with the first question. What sort of thing is atheism? And so I want to say tonight that atheism is a belief to be reached through a process of rational inquiry and deliberation. And so the intuitions that I'm trying to preserve in my language game are that atheists are closer to the truth than theists. That's the first intuition. The second intuition I want to maintain is atheism is more rational than theism. And the third intuition I want to maintain is atheism is logically prior to theism. So if we didn't have something like a concept of theism, the concept of atheism would be unnecessary. And so our second question was, what should the term atheism do? Well, we want our term atheism and the concept that it expresses to be able to be capable of consisting in a systematic philosophy. So something like secular humanism or metaphysical naturalism, or even political groups like the American Atheists, or just for categorizing people like religiously unaffiliated voters. We want our definition to be able to capture all these different sorts of things, so that if we're like, can you list examples of atheists or forms of life that have this atheist belief as a part of them, we can then list those sorts of things off. So the framework that I'm proposing tonight is that we can have the two questions, which are there any gods, or does God exist? So that's two different ways of conceiving of God, a very broad way and a very narrow way of conceiving of God. And so theism, the definition of theism would just be yes, there is at least one God. And atheism is no, there are not any gods. Agnosticism is the view that the question is indeterminate, that we cannot, the scales don't tip in favor of any other, of either view. So they're neither theists nor are they atheists. And then we have the term non-theist. And so non-theist actually refers to the mental states of some person. So that this person does not believe theism is true. And so, but this might be because they've never even considered the question. Maybe it's an infant or it's an isolated non-theist. And so then there's two distinctions that we've already drawn tonight, in addition, that fit within my language game. That's negative atheism and positive atheism. So positive atheism is just the view that There's no reason to believe that there are any gods or that God exists. And negative, or I'm sorry, I have that wrong. Positive atheism is the belief that there's reason to believe the answer is no, that there aren't any gods or that God doesn't exist. And negative atheism is the view that there's no reason to believe that there are any gods or that a God exists. So that's my framework in a nutshell. And I think that the framework is one that we should use in the sense of answering our question, which one should it use? Because it's clear, it stays in line with historical precedents and common language use, so people are familiar with this language game. I think it's stronger because it answers the whole question. We can clearly distinguish between atheists, theists, agnostics, and non-theists. It's more concise because I have fewer concepts to express and distinctions to draw. And I believe that it doesn't beg any questions against any certain views. So, for example, the if our view is that there are no reasons to believe there are any gods, the fideistic view, the view that faith is more important than reason or is somehow um, more important than reason, um, we would be begging the question against that view. And so those people would technically be considered atheists. And so that's kind of an implausible implication to my mind. So I think these are some of the positive advantages of my view. So I'll go ahead and end right there and let Tom
You bet.
put his
Thanks.
thought.
Thanks so much, Blake. And we will switch it over to Tom. Forgot to mention up front, folks, if as you're listening, you're like, I can't get enough of this guy. Well, I put both of their links in the description so that if you want to hear more, you can hear more of these gentlemen. So thanks so much, Tom. The floor is yours.
All right. So, what definition of atheism is better to use? Well, it's whichever one the atheists use. That's essentially how it works. It doesn't matter what you actually think about how the word should be used or if it's logically consistent or not. It makes no difference at all. All that matters is what do atheists who identify with the label use the word to mean. And the majority of the most popular atheists and the people who happen to follow them use it in a lack theist sense that there is no reason to believe because they consider God to be like Santa or leprechauns or any other imagined thing as essentially imaginary until demonstrated otherwise. And so you don't actually need to take up the burden to say, well, I can disprove that gods exist. No one really cares about that. When they say the atheist label, what they mean is that all the stuff that the religious people believe is just nonsense. So the burden they're adopting when they take the label of atheist is to say that every claim the theist makes is a ridiculous claim. It has nothing to do with whether or not there's a God. They don't really care about that because in the classical atheist worldview of how most atheists use the term, it's not about whether or not there's a God. It's about, is there a reason to believe there's a God? Are these claims that the theists are making, are they supported or unsupported? And when they claim they're an atheist, they're not saying there is no God. They don't care. They're saying all the stuff you're saying is ridiculous. And so what they want to address isn't the truth of the ontology of whether or not God exists, because again, they just don't care. It's not really an important thing to most people's everyday lives. It's what are the things the theists saying true or credible or reasonable. And so the burden they're adopting is to say, no, those things you're saying are not reasonable. And that's what they mean when they use the term atheist. And since it's the majority usage in the common parlance, then that's the definition we should use because it's what most accurately represents their position. Anything else just doesn't matter. As Dr. Graham Opie said, usage wins out, and that is the usage, so it's what we should use. Any types of alternative usages of the meaning would just be a straw man. The terms change meaning all the time, and like the word gay used to just mean happy, and then it got adopted by the LGBT community. It doesn't matter what the past history of the word was. It doesn't matter what you think the appropriate usage is. It's totally irrelevant. That demographic of people use that label to as an adaptation to represent their ideology, and so that is the correct definition because that's how they use it. Atheism works the same way. Anything else is irrelevant.
Gotcha. Thanks very much. We'll now open it up to open discussion. So thanks so much. The floor is all yours, gentlemen. Oh, I think you might
You're
be
muted. You're muted.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. I would have just kept talking. So I first want to clarify some things about what you're saying, just so that we're clear enough. So it seems to me that you are starting off with a substantive assumption about reason, in the sense that any gods are imaginary until demonstrated otherwise. Is that
No,
a correct assumption?
I'm not making assumptions about reason at all. I'm just making assumptions about what usually the standard position of most atheists are, which is that the God hypothesis is the same as leprechauns or unicorns or fairies or any other thing. It's just imaginary until demonstrated otherwise. So it's not an assumption about reason. It's an assumption about the general parlance of most atheists who adopt the term.
So, but it is a substantive assumption about what those people should believe. So that's what I'm using.
It has nothing to do with should. Should is irrelevant here. It's just this is what they believe.
Why is should irrelevant? It's part of our question. Our question is, what should the definition of
It's just a representation of what most atheists do believe. Whether they should or not is irrelevant. So most people who adopt the term, so what we should do is we should use the definition of the term which most accurately represents the people who use it.
So the language game. So the rules to the language game.
Stop for a second. So we should use the label, the definition that most accurately represents what the people who use the label mean it as, what to so accurately represent their position. Their position. Stop. Their position is that the God hypothesis is imaginary until demonstrated otherwise. Whether or not they should believe this is irrelevant. The question on the debate is, what definition should we use? Well, we should use the ones that the people who adopt the label use.
And so my position is no, that it should be the one that uses the language game that best helps us answer the question, does God exist?
And that's
so
just
I'm
false. That's not how language works.
For its own sake. So it seems like you're playing a different game. You're playing like what you would find in the court of law, where all you're trying to do is defeat the theist. And so it's just a different game.
No, I'm just
right. You can play that different game, but
no, there's no game here. It's just the way words
language
work.
Game. Yes.
No, there's no game here. This is just the way words
metaphor,
work. No, I know the metaphor. I don't care. So again, the correct way to use word is to accurately represent the people who adopt the label. That's it.
Who play the language game. Matter. That's what what do you think a language game?
No, it doesn't matter. None of that matters. None of the philosophical context matters. It's only just the correct way to use words is to make it
the actions in which our language is woven.
Okay, so again, not important. So again,
it is important. It's very important. I've framed the whole question of it, and it couldn't be more important, actually.
I don't care. So again, the correct way to use language is to accurately represent the people who adopt the label. That's it. That is the correct.
But you don't accurately represent the people who adopt the label.
Yes, I do.
Accurately represent a small subset of people.
The majority and the most prevalent and the biggest organization.
No, not the most prevalent.
The most prevalent. Yes, correct.
No, most prevalent would be everyday people who use the term normally, like I'm using it. Those would be the most prevalent.
Most people don't use the term.
We're talking about usage wins out. All the people who understand it my way, which is the majority of people, they went out.
No, most people don't even know what the word atheist means in general. The most of the people who do understand the term atheist are usually people who have adopted the label and actually looked into what it means, and they use it in the lack-theist kind of a way. Most philosophers are in the minority and don't really
philosophers don't use it that way. The only ones that I know that really use it are new atheist types and like political types like American atheists that are trying to include as many people as possible.
Yep, and they do take up the majority of people who do understand what the term atheist means.
So you're saying understand what it means. We've already said that they're expressing what they're using it as, but then you're saying that they understand it as what it means. So it sounds like to me that there's some sort of common concept which they can all understand, and which everyone else's understanding is somehow lacking because they haven't come to it.
No, that's the way. No, again,
that's just the language game. And so you're playing a different language game. You're trying to defeat theists instead of trying to answer the question, does God exist?
Again, so stop. So the only thing, stop for a minute.
The theist.
No, straw man, irrelevant. Defeat the theist is not a part here. I don't care about defeating the theist. It's irrelevant.
just to be sure that it's hard for me to keep track of both the live chat and also, by the way, folks, feel free to shoot your questions in there and also the conversation just to see who was last talking. Maybe we'll give like a minute or two each, and then we'll kind of just rotate and go from there. So let's see. I think Tom maliciously interrupted Blake, so we can go back to Blake, and then we come back to you, Tom. I promise.
So let me just lay out some objections. So I think there are 4 very crucial objections to the language game that Tom is proposing here. First, it's that it departs from the ordinary and historical senses of the term atheist. So it introduces the risk of introducing confusion in a discussion. So think of, again, we're using the language game as our metaphor here. Think of a game in which you're trying to play where only one side is playing defense. That's it. They say that they're going to show up and play the game, but all they do is play defense. Now, when the offense says, okay, that's fine, you've beaten me every time, but now let's switch roles and see how it goes. If you then say, no, I'm only here to play defense, you're just playing a different game. You weren't actually playing the language game that everyone thought you were doing. The second objection that I would put out there is this only answers part of the question. This allows new atheists and people like Tom to play the role of a pure skeptic. So they can play hide the ball with their burdens of justification. The claims that they make, they just don't have to defend them because they're saying, no, my position is entirely negative, and they don't put anything positive forward, thus avoiding any sort of burdens of justification. I think that's just dishonest. I think it straightforwardly counts against that usage.
Okay, well, all that's just bullshit because none of that has anything to do with the definition.
You're interrupting, so hush. It is redundant. We already have a redundant distinction between positive and negative atheism. So positive atheism, on my view, can just be atheism, and negative atheism can just be agnosticism, just not having it. So we already don't need this distinction, but the fact that we have it and then you're trying to take it a step further makes it doubly redundant. And then, of course, you beg the question against fideism, the view that thinks that faith is more important than reason. You're begging the question against them because those people come to the question. So the question is, are there any gods? You're saying, is there any good reason to believe there are any gods? The theist accepts that claim. So the theist, by your definition, is already considered an atheist, which is just absurd. So those are 4 straightforward objections right off the top of the bat.
Okay, none of those have anything to do with my position. So, okay.
All of them have to do with your position in the language
just your delusion.
You're putting forward. So you backing off and denying that just counts against you.
We'll jump back over to Tom to give you a chance, and then I promise we'll come right back to you, Blake.
Yeah, so everything you just said was complete bullshit because none of it has to do with anything related to the definition of atheism. It's not adopted to address, like, to counter theism in that sense. Like, no, that's just what they actually believe. It's as simple as that. Does the word accurately represent what most atheists use the word to mean? Yes, that's it. There's no other further considerations. It doesn't make a difference. Nothing he said matters. We're done there. Like, so what is the position? I can just pull up quotes from Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens and the general dictionary. Just Google it. You can find the definitions right there. Atheism is a lack of belief in gods. Okay, we're done. That's just what they mean. Like, if you go to the big conferences and you talk to the atheists and you go to atheist meetings, they don't say, I believe there are no gods. They say, I just don't believe in any of the stuff these say. That's just what they believe. Tactical reasoning is irrelevant. Doesn't matter how this applies to a debate. That's just generally what they believe. And so when they say the word atheist, that's just to accurately represent what they believe. You just have to use that definition. If you don't, you're straw manning and you're an idiot. As simple as that. That's what they mean by the term. That's the definition you have to use. As simple as that. Game over.
All yours, Blake.
Okay, so you're telling me psychological facts about a small group of people that do not keep in line with the ordinary use or the historical use.
Well, ordinary use and historical use is irrelevant.
That doesn't help us answer the question, what should the definition of atheism be? So,
well, I already answered that question.
The question tonight is, what should the definition of atheism be tonight? And you've given no relevant answer.
No,
I've
I
given
did. I
four
no.
reasons
I answered the
your
question
view
specifically.
doesn't work, and you've given no reasons to believe that your view.
Were you not listening? Are you
better.
just deaf or dumb? Like the answer is correct definition of the word atheist is the one that most accurately represents what the people who adopt the label mean
But
by the
you
term.
don't. But it doesn't. It just
It
departs
does.
from the historical and ordinary.
The historical part is irrelevant. It doesn't
No, it's
make a
not.
difference.
No, it's
Yes,
not.
it is.
No, it's not.
Appeal to history.
No, it's not.
Goodbye fallacy. Done. Dumb shit. Like you can make the same argument and say, well, the word gay historically did just mean happy. Like the LGBT
Still, we
do
can
not
still
care.
use it in those senses. So if I say that I
Right.
had a gay old time, I'm saying that I'm having a happy
Right.
time. There's
Right.
absolutely
You can
nothing
still use it in those
objectionable
senses. That's great.
about
I
that
don't
use.
disagree with that. You can still use atheist to mean I believe gods don't exist, that you can do that. I'm not saying you can't. But the correct definition to use is the one used by the majority of atheists who adopt the label, which is lack of belief.
Why is that the correct the definition?
Because the correct definition is the one that the people who adopt the label want it to mean. That's
So why should we prefer that over a historical sense and an ordinary sense?
because that's how language works. The
No, it's
word-
not.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
That's-
Not according to a language game. No, it is not. You
I
can't
don't
just
care
show
about
up
your
to a
language
game
game.
and
Yes,
play
yes,
whatever
you can.
rules
That's
you want
I
to
just
play.
disproved that. That's what the word gay
You
example
can't show up
proves.
to a game and just say, I'm going to adopt whatever rules I want to in order to answer this question. No, you
Yes, yes, you can. That's how
No, you
language
can't.
works. I gave
That's how
gay is
that's
one
how
example that just
confusion-
proves
that's how
everything you said
confusion
bullshit.
enters
Again,
into a discussion.
One sec.
I've already
We'll-
disproven that.
We will.
The word gay is a proof that that is wrong.
How?
Because they come in and they change the definition to mean something that it doesn't mean.
By
you-
usage, yes, but
Yes.
That doesn't negate the old usage.
I
That
never
is-
said it did. Nowhere in my
so
statement did
what
I
you're
ever say
describing
that.
is how gay became the usage
Yes.
now became
Yes,
ordinary.
exactly. Stop. I never said it negated the old definition. Nowhere in my argument did I say that.
It became the ordinary sense. So the
Correct.
ordinary sense of the word changed.
Just
But
like the
you
word
don't have
atheism.
the ordinary sense
Congratulations.
of the term. I have the ordinary sense of the term.
No.
Let's look it up in the dictionary, like you just
Yes.
suggested.
Okay.
to do.
Let's do that. Let's
In
go to
Oxford
Google.
Dictionary.
No, I'm going to go with Google. Definition: atheism. Disbelief or lack of belief in the existence of God.
The
or gods.
disbelief
Boom.
or lack
Or
of
lack. Oh,
So
damn.
which is better? That's the question I brought us here to discuss, and you haven't given us an answer.
I did in the very
No, you
first
didn't.
thing. You must have your head up your
You
ass.
gave
'cause I
us
specifically
psychological
did.
facts about a small group of people that are completely irrelevant to answering our question. That's
no,
what you.
no. Again, the correct definition is the one that most accurately represents the people who adopt the label. That is the end
Why?
of the distinction.
Why? What
Because
reason?
that's how language works.
That's not how language
That
works.
is
and
exactly
I just
how
showed
language
you
works. You have
that
your
by
head
a
up your ass.
language game, my
I already
concept
defeated.
of a
I already
language
defeated
is better
everything
than
you
yours.
said.
More fundamental.
I already just crushed everything you said just by using the word gay as an example. That defeats all
no,
of the bull crap
no,
you said.
didn't.
Because it's exactly analogous.
Oh
the word
man,
gay can be adopted by a
it's-
small minority to represent their psychological whatever, and then it becomes the standard definition. That's exactly what happened with atheism. Done.
No, it didn't.
Yes, it did.
No, it didn't.
Yes, it did.
There is a small group of people, a
I
small
don't.
minority.
No. Stop.
You-
It doesn't make a
you are a
difference
small
what you
minority
think
of
of the small
who
minority
use
people.
the term in this way that we already have that. Why do we have this distinction, positive atheism and negative atheism? Why does it even exist?
Again,
Account for the
so
minority
a
people
small
like-
minority used the term gay differently, and now it's accepted. So there's no
That they
problem.
use it in a historical sense, and now the ordinary sense has changed. The
Right.
ordinary sense of atheism
Yes, it
has
has.
not changed.
Yes, it has.
No, it hasn't.
Yes, it has.
We just saw this, that the ordinary sense has in it the disbelief that God exists. That's how it is.
Right. And if I Google the term gay, happy is also one of the ordinary senses. It doesn't change that. So it
Exactly.
doesn't help your argument.
So it's an ordinary sense. So then you have to say
Okay.
which one is better for the language game in which we're playing.
Yes, and I
If our
answered that.
language game
Which
is
one-
does
what
God
it mean?
exist, mine is better.
No one
Period.
cares what your language game is. The only meaningful
Okay,
use of
so
the
you're
word
playing
is,
a different
what do
language game.
atheists
That's
mean?
fine.
No, I don't give a shit about your language game crap. I'm not even going to address that because it's irrelevant. What
Because
do
you have
atheists who
nothing
use
to say
the
against
team-
it.
What do atheists who use the word mean by the word?
No,
What
what
they
do
mean, I don't
you
believe in
mean
nonsense.
when you use the word? You're the minority. You're not.
No,
you
they're
don't
the majority.
get-
I don't care your opinion on this. It's just nope, false. So people who adopt the term, the majority of them, the biggest speakers, the people who are all the conferences, the labels of all of the big corporations.
No, of
who
all the
use
big,
term,
who are all the big?
American Atheists, the humanists.
American Atheists. So none of those have to do with an academic journal.
Academic journals
None of those have to do with something within the academy.
Academic journals are the small niche of people who just don't matter to the definitions. The definitions are defined by the majority. And the academic journals don't make a difference. Yeah, please go away, because academic definitions are irrelevant to any common parlance definitions. They just don't matter. There's lots of different academic definitions that have nothing to do with
we're clearly, we have two different aims. His aim is to defeat theists.
No, again, this has nothing to do with defeating theists. Straw man.
Does God exist?
Again, this has nothing to do with defeating theism. This is just, what do people who use the term atheist mean by the term? They're accurately representing their belief that they're all the stuff theists say don't make any sense.
I'm resting my case.
Please do. You were done like a long time ago. Nothing you said is relevant. So again, the correct definition to use is the one that is used by the most atheists who adopt the term atheism, which is lack of belief. The term accurately represents their belief that all the things that theists say is bullcrap. That's just what they believe. That's the part they're supporting.
Counterexample, a negative theist. There is a God unless there is reason to doubt.
Don't care. Again,
theism, there's no reason to doubt a God.
Don't care.
You don't care.
Don't care. Do not care.
So that's a stalemate. So
that's just irrelevant.
My view is better than
yours,
because
there's nothing there.
Nothing
you've said is relevant. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, the only point of the term is to accurately represent the people who adopt the definition of atheism. None of your counterexamples matter. None of the philosophy matters. Doesn't make a difference at all. The only correct definition is what accurately represents the definition being used by the people who adopt the term. That's it. No other considerations are relevant. So atheists like Sam Harris or Richard Dawkins or Christopher Hitchens or American Atheists or any of the people who actually go to those conferences and adopt the label atheist, you can just ask them, what do you mean when you say you're an atheist? And they're going to say, I think all the stuff that theist says is nonsense. Are you claiming that there's absolutely
so they're not theists?
No, they're claiming that all of the stuff that theists say are nonsense.
So
they're expressing their position.
So you're including more people, agnostics and non-theists.
No, I'm only including people who adopt the term atheist. People who adopt the term atheist, when you ask them, what do you mean by the term atheist? They say, I believe all the stuff theists say are nonsense. It's that simple. I don't care about anybody else. No one else matters. Agnostics don't matter. Other theists don't matter. Fideists don't matter. The only people who matter are people who adopt the label atheist. What do you mean by the word atheist?
You're atheists, not the ordinary sense, because
the ordinary atheist, like any ordinary atheist. If you poll all atheists, all people who adopt
all atheists, they would be on my side.
No, they'd be on my side.
Yeah, no,
yeah, I win.
It's an
You're
empirical
done.
fact.
Yes, it would. Yes, it is.
So look it up.
Correct. Yes.
Look it up. Go ahead.
All people who identify as the term atheist would be on my side.
No, you're.
Yep.
No, you're just
Sorry,
empirically
I don't
wrong.
It's great. You can go bother somebody else with that nonsense. So again, the correct usage of the term atheist is, well, what do atheists mean by the term? And what they mean is that theists say, what the theists say is nonsense. So that's the correct usage of the term. It's that simple.
I'm seeing right here that Wikipedia disagrees with you, that the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy disagrees with you, that the Oxford
what he disagrees with me on what? You're not saying
that
anything.
Merriam-Webster disagrees with you.
You haven't said anything.
That the New York Times disagrees with you.
You said nothing. You said disagrees about what?
That BBC disagrees. So most people understand the term
You've said
as
nothing.
being the belief that God doesn't exist.
If
you're going to defend something like secular humanism, why are you doing that? Because you take it as true that there aren't any gods or that God doesn't exist.
What are you put something
forward,
you said nothing.
Metaphysical naturalism.
Stop.
Why do you put forward that?
You've said all of these places disagree with me. Stop.
God.
You said stop.
You just want to avoid your burden of justification.
This has nothing to do with my position at all.
It's my turn to talk.
I'm asking for clarification here. I'm asking for clarification here. You need to actually clear up what you've said.
I'm done.
1 second.
Please do. Shut the fuck
1 second.
up, please.
Hold on.
So he just listed a bunch of these places.
You're trying to become more family friendly. I promise I'll give you a chance, Tom.
Okay.
we're moving to the mainstream, but we will give Tom a chance to respond. So we heard a list of different sources that Blake says disagree with you, Tom, and we'll give you a chance to
Yeah,
respond.
but he never said on what. He's like, they disagree with me on, or is he claiming that the
The
majority
ordinary
of
sense of
I'm
the
just,
term.
I
No
just,
one gives
well,
a
what I
crap.
was trying to do is, my only reason for saying that wasn't to like push you, Tom. It was only to say, so
No,
just,
I understand that.
so
I
we'll give you a
understand that.
chance to respond to Blake's list.
So again, he gave a list that disagree with me. He never said what they disagree on. Are they disagreeing with the fact that the majority of people who identify as atheists use the term to mean a lack of belief? No, they agree with me on that. He's saying they disagree with me on the common usage of the word in the philosophical sense. No one cares. Again, that wasn't my point. It's irrelevant. I mean, I agree that most philosophers use it in the more technical sense. It just doesn't make a difference. It's irrelevant. I don't care. It's not important to the definition. Do all those places agree with me that the majority of people who identify with the term atheist mean a lack of belief? Yes, they do agree with me on that, because that's what, when polled, most people at most atheist conferences and who identify as an atheist use the term to mean. They have adopted that label because most famous atheists and famous atheist organizations have adopted that label, and they go with it because they like it, because it most accurately represents their beliefs. And that is the correct usage of the term. It's that simple. No one else cares. No one cares what the philosophers think. You can make up all kinds of technical definitions in philosophy that are not used in common parlance or used differently. Like the word literally. Literally is used figuratively in common parlance and not in philosophical papers. No one really cares. Just doesn't make a difference how philosophers use the term in common parlance.
Or switching over to Blake. Thanks for your patience, Blake.
People do care. People care a lot because secular humanism, people care about that. People care about things like the implications of the answer to the question, does God exist? This is so, no, it's just false that the people who identify as atheists somehow get this monopoly on what the term, the correct usage of the term means. No, the correct usage of the term is the one that's going to help us better answer the question, does God exist? Because that's the question that matters. And so if you're not trying to answer that question, you're playing some other game. You're playing some other language game. You're doing something different. There's nothing objectionable about doing that if you set that out at the front. But don't act like you're the correct definition, because what determines the correct definition and the ordinary sense of terms is going to be how everyone uses it, not just limited to the people who identify it, because most people might identify that label for political reasons. And that's fine. But again, different language game. They aren't trying to answer the question that matters. And if you disagree with that, that's fine. You just aren't seeking truth for its own sake. So if you aren't seeking truth for its own sake, that's what, nothing else you say matters. All the other psychological facts that you like to try to appeal to, they just don't matter for helping us get at the truth. They don't help with that dialectical method that we're aiming for in order to discover truth by reasoned arguments. It's just not trying to do that. And so that's what, so I've given at least 4 reasons why my view is better and his is not, for answering that question, why it's the better language game to adopt. Part of that case involves the historical uses and the ordinary senses of those terms. Those matter. And if you disagree, I guess you just don't understand language.
Yeah, so I mean, everything you just said is total bullshit. You could make the same exact arguments.
Everything I just said is total bullshit.
Everything.
Okay.
So you could say exactly verbatim everything he said for the correct usage of the word gay. It's only used by a minority of people. Oh, it's just not taking in the historical context of the term. No one gives a shit. Like, that's not how language works. You just don't understand language at all. You have your head up your ass. Language just works in the way it's arbitrary. We can make up whatever definitions we want. Then we can make up contradictory
We make up
definitions.
rules to games however we want.
Yes, we can. That's because they're arbitrary. We can
Oh,
change
really?
the
So
rules
can
however we want.
some rules be better than other games?
Yes, they can be. Some
Yeah,
rules are.
so
They're the
certain
ones that
definitions
we adopt.
better than others. So
Yes,
again,
yes,
you
my
haven't
my
answered that.
definition is better than yours because it's the ones we adopt. And the term gay is better used as an LGBT representation of their community because it's the one we adopt. The better is the one we adopt. There isn't an objectively better. There's no like objective standard here. No one cares about the consistency of usage in that sense. All that matters
You
is
just said that
what
there
is
are
the most
better senses of
yes, better
okay.
as in the only measure of better is how do people use it? How they use it, that's the better one. It doesn't matter if they're right.
The rules to
Rules
games
don't matter.
are only
The
better
rules are
by
relevant.
how people play them.
That's correct. The better rules are just how people play them. Doesn't matter if you have a better system of chess. No one cares. They're going to keep using the system they use because that's the one they like, and that's what makes it better. Because it's arbitrary. It's just a language. Meaning, definitions or usages. They don't actually have any objectively correct definition. It's just how people use them. And correct usage of the word atheism is to represent atheists.
Can't tell us anything about how to get what we want.
What?
The aim of a game, something can be better or worse in the achieving the aim of the game. You're saying that it's arbitrary, that the rules of that game can be whatever they just be whatever. So you're saying the implication of that is that reason cannot help us get what we want. That has nothing to do with anything I said.
Like, no, just bullcrap. Like, there's no.
Yeah, great response. Good job.
Yes, actually it was, because what you just said is complete crap. Like saying that games are arbitrary and you can make up new rules. Yes, you can.
I'm saying, are there better or worse ways for achieving aims within a game? Are there certain sets of rules that are better than others because they achieve certain aims better than others?
You're messaging with the
no. I'm just
analogy.
on another
You're completely
level.
misunderstanding. You have your head up your ass. So the game is the language. That's the play. We're playing what language is better. That's the game. And the game, to win the game,
game is where we're trying to answer a question. So I laid out four languages. One where we try to find the truth for its own sake. One where we try to oppose each opposing view. One where we
assume. This is the problem. That you have your head up your ass.
At one point, we have to give Blake a chance to respond.
No.
And one in which
we've got to give Blake a chance to respond, Tom.
No. It's still part of my response here, so he's interrupting my response. So he's made up this bullcrap goals that we don't share.
This was my opportunity to talk.
No. I just started talking a minute ago. No. You shush.
No.
Because I'm still in the middle of my freaking.
Oh, you guys are like, I love it. You guys are like brothers. Well, let's hold on one sec. One sec.
I need to be able to finish my argument.
Just 1 sec. Well, let me ask the audience really quick. Who is currently in their speech, and then I'll give people a quick reminder that we are happy to get your questions if you fire them into the old live chat. And then also want to mention, if you had not noticed, we have both of these gentlemen linked so that if you are hearing this and you're like, I want more of that. Well, you definitely can. And
you're just gonna end with an and?
Well, I'm looking at the live chat to see if somebody's saying who was actually in their speech before it got interrupted. Because to be honest, I lost track. BD says no idea. So
it was definitely me, because he said that there were these rules that we're playing a game.
The only person that said so was Neat Bucks. Thinks it's Tom. So thanks Neat Bucks for that feedback, and then in Archaeopteryx X. So we'll go over to Tom, and then I promise we'll come right back to you, Blake.
So he said we're playing a game and there are different rules to achieve the end of the game. The problem is that, well, what is the game and what is the end? He has presumed that the game and the end of the game is about logic and reason, about answering a question. The way atheists define the term has nothing to do with that. He's just straw-manning their position. It is irrelevant to the game. It's just, this is what our position is. That's it. There's no game here. There's no defeat theist. This is just, what do we believe? And that's it. That is the game. The game, to correctly define languages, is what accurately represents their position. It has nothing to do with theists, has nothing to do with defeating them. It's irrelevant. That isn't the game. The game isn't truth. The game isn't to accurately represent reality, try to discover the ontology of normative ethics. Doesn't matter. The only part of the game, the rules of the game, are what most accurately represents their belief system. The people who use the term atheist, who adopt the label, what definition most accurately represents what they believe, that's the game. Truth doesn't matter. Philosophy doesn't matter. Theists don't matter. Irrelevant. That's it. That's the game. That's the rules.
We'll now kick it over to Blake for a chance. Thanks for that, Tom. And Blake, the floor is yours.
The language game isn't about truth. Truth doesn't matter. Theists don't matter. Philosophy doesn't matter. I'll rest my case. That's no argument I could possibly present would be stronger against Tom than that one. I'm good.
That's how language works. It has nothing to do with truth. It's just about what the usage means, how people use it. Truth is irrelevant.
So we can jump into the good old questions if you guys are ready for it.
Sounds good to me.
Gotcha. All good on your front, Blake?
I'm good.
You betcha. So thanks so much for your super chats tonight. Michael Dresden, trollish as usual, says, atheists say Christians disagree, and yet this debate, LOL. So if you both want to...
I get really frustrated with this type of debate because of people like Tom. I think I think they really hurt our movement. I think they really count against us, and I think Christians are right to point that out.
Gotcha.
Yes, people like Sam Harris and Richard Dawkins and Christopher Hitchens, they really hurt the movement. Like, oh my God, like, whoa. So they did such a terrible job for atheism.
In certain ways, they do. They very much do.
Oh, I'm so sad. I'm so sad to be in a group of such terrible figures.
I don't really care how you feel. Those are psychological.
I'm sure. I don't care. I don't care how you feel. I'm happy with the support of logic and reason here.
Gotcha. Cool. Next up, appreciate you guys are a fun duo. Josiah Hansen, thanks for your super chat, who said, boo, lack theist crap. Tom, how do you like them apples?
I mean, I technically hold the position there are no gods, but this is just the correct definition.
Yeah, he just doesn't want to accept the burden of justification.
No, I accept the burden. Like, if you've ever watched any of my videos, I accept the burden, and I'm happy to take on the position.
If you did, then you wouldn't have any problem switching over to this definition.
No, again, I don't.
Trying to find the truth for its own sake.
I've already said both definitions are fine. You can definitely use both. The correct
I've
definition.
said that too. So then we've resolved that disagreement.
Right,
so
but you had your head up your ass, and you said that I was claiming that it was wrong, and I didn't. I never said that it's wrong to use atheist in that definition. You assumed that because you had your head up your ass.
You said the correct definition, implying that there is a wrong definition.
I'm saying correct is in what most accurately represents the people who use the term atheism. It doesn't mean it's wrong to use the other definitions. It's just you should be using this one because that's what most atheists use. You can still use it.
You should be using this one. I thought it wasn't about should.
Right. So like the term gay, just like the term gay, which was the entire premise of my argument.
Are you still talking?
Wrong to use it as happy. It's not wrong to use it as happy. I never said that. You have your head up your ass. It's totally fine, but we should use it to mean the LGBT community. That is the correct way to use it. Does it make it wrong to use it as happy? No. Did I ever say it did? No, you just have your head up your ass. So atheism is the same thing. It's just the correct way to use it is just the way that the most atheists tend to use it, which is to represent their position, which is they believe that what theists say is crap. That's it. That's just what it means.
Next up, we do appreciate your super chat. Let's see. Opposer of religion says Blake making TJump look like a beta boy. Okay. So if you want to respond, you can, Tom. You don't have to.
That's fine.
These guys are, oh my gosh, the flat fellow, who I'm guessing is maybe a flat earther. Maybe they remember one of your past flat earth debates. These guys are just grilling you, Tom. They say, the flat fellow says, if you keep featuring TJ debating, I will unsubscribe. Jeez, flat. I mean, Tom's been he's been with us since the beginning, pretty much. I can't just say. Let's see. Michael Dresden, thanks for your super chat, says, TJump said atheists at conferences agree with him. That's only true for internet atheists with neckbeards. At scholarly conferences, atheists agree with Blake.
At atheist conferences, atheists agree with me. So that's kind of what matters. Who identifies with the term and what did they use it to mean? No one cares what the philosophers think. Just like no one cares about the technical usages of certain language. It just doesn't matter to common society.
Gotcha. Next up, if you want to respond, Blake, you can. You don't have to.
No, the audience is doing a perfect job for me.
Sexy Calzone, thanks for your, let's see, your super chat, who says, I need a diuretic due to all the salt in the chat. Oh, snap. A lot of salt out there. It's even Steve McRae. People are like throwing their poop at Steve McRae. But Frank's 92, thanks for your super chat, who says, what's the correct definition of gay, Blake? So they're asking you, Blake.
It has multiple senses. And so I think that the ordinary sense right now is probably understood to be people that are homosexual.
Gotcha.
Oh my God, that was my whole point. I win. Thank you.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. Next up, appreciate Philip. Let's see. Oh, I'm sorry. First 100th monkey says, no one gives a shit. Okay, jeez. Come on, I'm sitting right here. Okay, next up, Uncivil Skeptic. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. They say, love this channel's content. Click like people. That's very kind of you, Uncivil Skeptic. Appreciate that. Philip.
I like how his name was Uncivil Skeptic, but he gave a very civil comment.
That's true.
I don't think that irony went unappreciated.
That's
bro.
true.
That was awesome.
The sweet skeptic, civil skeptics. Philip, glad to have your super chat. They say, question for Blake. Are you saying that we should aim to definitively answer the question, does God exist?
Yes, I think that we should try to see how reason can come to bear on the question, does God exist, or are there any gods? I think that is an incredibly important metaphysical question that we should all take very seriously.
Gotcha. And we did have a question as well from... They said, what if the question is not answerable, though?
Then we're agnostics. And that's perfect. And so that's a view. And it has its merits. I am not an agnostic myself, because I think that reason can give us, I think the word used earlier was definitive. I would probably use the word decisive considerations, which count against theism and count in favor of atheism.
Gotcha. Next up, appreciate your super chat from Cy Gart. Glad to see you, Dr. Gart, who says, Tom, why do atheist organizations exist?
As a gathering point and focal point for people who adopt the position of atheism as a lack of belief, to gather around and to have a social network and connection and represent their ideologies, and to many of them try to get like religion out of politics. Many of them just do humanitarian aid. Many of them are just like churches, social gathering points for many atheists that do no political activism at all. All kinds of reasons. It's just a social interaction for people who adopt the label.
Gotcha.
I would agree with that.
You got it. Thanks so much. Next up, let's see. We have another. So we have a super chat. Thanks, Stupid Whore Energy, as she likes to call herself. She says usages are not correct or incorrect. There is only colloquial or technical.
Yep, pretty much.
Blake, if you want to respond, you may.
Oh, so what I'm saying is what language game helps us better answer the question. So that there is a correct or incorrect way of doing it. So one usage is going to be better than another for achieving some aim.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. Next up, I do have other standard questions. Kilodoggy1, thanks for your question. They said, are you 100% confident that only material things exist, aka a materialist? I think they're... Oh, okay, for Blake, they're asking.
So am I 100% confident? No, but thankfully I do not believe that confidence is part of knowledge. So I'm what's called a metaphysical naturalist. So I believe that the universe is a causally closed system, though I am not a naturalist in the sense that I believe all properties in the universe can be reduced to the stuff of physics and chemistry and biology. So I think things like logic and mathematics and ethics are not the sorts of properties that would be investigated by the natural sciences. So I'm not a naive materialist in the sense of believing there's atoms in the void, but I am a metaphysical naturalist in the sense of being something like a neutral monism, something in the vein of John Searle's biological naturalism, where there are certain physical properties and then there are non-physical properties, and these are just two different ways of describing the same reality.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. Next up, Mitchell, if you're out there, I just realized I did not read this question from last night. I think this must have come in just as we went off air. Mitchell asked, question for James, are you really 33 years old? Yes, Okay, so
I'm
30.
34.
You're 34. I'm 33, and Tom is. I think you're like 24, right, Tom?
What?
24.
Yeah, I'm gonna go. Yeah, I'll go with 24. Sure.
Gotcha. We like
Nice.
that. You know, he's coming along. He's a little guy, but
Yeah, just like Steve McRae is my dad. I'm 24.
that's right. Steve McRae and Tom Jump. That's the debate everybody wants to see. We will be, as you've maybe heard, we'll be in Los Angeles next month, March 17th. Destiny and Vosh will be debating in person, and if Steve agrees to it, we could have a discussion on the definition of atheism with Tom Jump and his father, Steve. That would be an epic one. Steve, think about it. I know you're listening out there. And by the way, we saw Shannon Q in the chat. Big day for her. I heard that she got hung up on Atheist Experience today during their afternoon show. I guess she was farting on the phone so much. They were like, what is going on? And they just hung up on her. Very embarrassing. So, but she tried. She
To
tried her
fart
best.
on the phone?
Well, she tried to not fart, but it was involuntary. So you gotta take
Fair
it
enough.
easy. Looks
Fair enough.
so appreciate that. General Ballsack, thanks for your super chat. They said just throwing some bucks your way. Keep this channel quote unquote family friendly. Thanks so much, General Ballsack. We appreciate that. And yes, stupid horror energy. It would come to blows if we had. Whoa, Ocean says. Whoa, Steve says yes. Okay, so Steve says yes to this discussion with Tom Jump, which would be in
Well,
person.
he said he was going to be in LA with me, I think. I don't like what? I will be in LA with TJump. Like when are we going to LA?
Well, listen,
Ooh,
we can
LA.
find a way. We might be able to do this. This would be awesome.
In
If-
LA? That would be awesome.
Yes. So that could be like leading up to Destiny and Vosh, which are, a lot of people don't know, those are also Steve's sons. So a lot of kids. But very excited. Really fun stuff. We will definitely like consider that. So Shannon, are you out there? Did she leave? I was kidding about she didn't really, it's not really why she got hung up on. Where is she? So well, hope you're well, Shannon. And Stupid Horror Energy says G-Man wins. So just so you know, if you didn't realize that tonight, G-Man won. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. I guess we have more. We'll go through a couple more questions. So let's see. Stupid Horror Energy just fired a super chat in. I will be writing erotic threesome fan fiction involving James, Steve, and Tom. Nasty woman. So Tioga says Vosh is my dad.
Wait. Do I get like some money from this, or do we get proceeds? Is that part of the thing?
From the threesome that you do with Steve, that's all your own private, what you do on your time is your time. Old boy, let's see, says, what are Destiny and Vosh debating? That's a great question. I don't know for sure. Let's see. I know that they had like a teaser debate where for 20 minutes I think it got pretty heated, and I think that's on Vosh's and Destiny's channels. So that might give you a teaser, but I haven't gotten to watch all of it because I've honestly been dying lately. Like, it's just been crazy busy. But 20 Faces, thanks for your question. We've got more questions. I'm sorry, this is just too fun to stop. We've got 20 Faces, thanks. They said people, to Tom, people can have a lack of belief for at least two reasons. Because you're unsure of the proposition or because you actively reject it. Surely the latter reflect agnosticism and... question mark?
Again, the word atheist is just what do people who adopt the word mean by the word, and what they mean by the word is they don't believe the stuff theists say. That's how you use the definition. So if people don't actually adopt the term atheism, then you wouldn't call them atheists, because they wouldn't adopt the term atheism. You'd call them whatever they adopt, and whatever they define that as.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. Next up.
Most
Go
pedophiles
ahead.
don't identify as pedophiles, but we would still correctly be able to call certain people pedophiles.
That's a crime. So we have a label that has an objective definition based off of the legal system. Atheism doesn't. It's just a term. Like, it's just, if you identify it, you get to use it. It's not a crime, thankfully. Used to be, not anymore. So
I don't see
comparing it,
what the fact of it being a crime has to do with anything? Because we're
Well,
saying
the
that someone has
definition,
the property of being an atheist, or someone
right?
has the
It's the
property of
fact that it has a legal
we
definition with a legal
truly say
crime
that to
makes
communicate.
that definition take precedent. The fact that there's a legal punishment for the definition of pedophile means that has a definition we're going to use based off of the legal punishment. So you don't just get to make up a new one because there's a legal punishment. There isn't like a legal definition of atheism. Like the government doesn't care how you identify yourself as because there isn't one, a legal definition or legal punishment for it. Luckily, it's just like the term gay. There isn't a legal definition of the word gay. You could use it however you want. If you adopt that community, you can use it. And if you don't, then you don't use it.
So what if someone didn't identify as gay? What if someone had
Then you call them whatever they
homosexual?
identify as. If you ask, what do you identify as? They can say, I identify as blah, blah.
No, we're trying to communicate meeting about properties that people have. If someone is
No.
engaging in
No.
homosexual
You
activity,
call them
we
what
can
they want to
truly
be
say
called.
that they are gay.
No, you call
because
them what
have
they
the
want to be
property of
called.
being gay, even if they don't.
You call
identify or
them
accept
what they want to be called. It's that simple. If they adopt a label, you call them whatever label they want to be called. It's that simple. That is the correct term. You call them what they want to be called.
I understand that, but we're talking about communicating meaning. We're not talking about being respectful to what labels people want to be called. We're talking about communicating meaning. These are different things. One is political, the other is linguistic.
And the meaning is whatever they want the term to mean. So if an atheist adopts the term atheist and they want it to mean lack of belief, then that is the correct definition.
Gotcha. Let's see here. Next up, thanks so much for your question from our dear friend Logos Theos, who said, for Tom, why do most atheist philosophers of religion disagree with you about the definition of atheism?
Because they're using the philosophical definition, not the definition adopted by the larger culture. I mean,
they are using it, but no, the question was, why do they disagree with you? And the answer is not because they use a different definition. There are reasons why they disagree with you.
They just choose to use a different definition. To quote Graham Oppie, usage wins out, and right now the major usage is just a lack of belief, so that's totally fine.
Gotcha. Let's see here. Appreciate it. Next up, appreciate your question from Clyde Booker, who says, can these debaters answer some or none of the questions? Oh, I think they meant to each other. Very feisty. Justin T, thanks for your question. They said, isn't the best strategy? Oh, that was actually similar. Thanks so much. Pine Creek, glad to see you again, old friend. It's been a long time with Pine Creek, too. We got to chat back and forth. He says, for Blake, do you feel sorry for theists that they always have to take the burden of proof? Is your passion on this topic out of compassion?
No, but I think that's kind of an interesting way of thinking. I never thought about it that way. So I'm a philosopher of religion, and so I just think that both sides are going to have a burden of justification because necessarily the dialectical method, that's what it attempts to do. It tries to use reason discourse to get at the truth. So both sides are going to have burdens of justification, and we're going to try to persuade each other and see what claims, can be conceded between the two of them, and how disagreements can be resolved, and that all parties can, in the end, arrive at the truth.
Gotcha.
So I don't think it's a compassion for theism. It's a camaraderie with theism in trying to answer this important question.
Thanks so much. Next up, let's see here. Want to make sure. Josiah Hansen, thanks for your super chat. They said gay does have a legal definition for discrimination.
That is true. It does now also, after the term was adopted by the LGBT community, then it is also
going with that. I don't think that the legality of the term has any bearing on the meaning we're trying to communicate with the term.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. Onus, thanks for your question, but I am not seeing it. Onus, you're probably going to murder me for this. Please don't. I can't find your question. So sorry about that. So we will ask in the meantime. I do have Chemo Maki, thanks for your question, who asks, please ask Tom, what empirical studies support his contention that the majority of people adhere to his definition?
Just going to atheist conferences and asking them, like that's pretty much what you do. I mean, we could do the studies if you want. We could go take polls. I think there have been actually polls of like atheist conferences and people who identify as atheists in the majority, like Western countries. I don't know about the other ones. So we have those. I can Google them for you if you want.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. Mind Onion, thanks for your question. They said, question for Blake. How can Plato call the belief that gods can be influenced by prayer an atheistic opinion in Book 10 of the Laws if this is the historic philosophical definition?
Did Plato use the term atheist?
So
in the original Greek, I don't know. That's an interesting question. I don't think I fully grasped the question that they're asking. But
yes, he did, because Socrates was convicted of atheos and sentenced to death. So yes, Plato did use the term atheist.
So
because weren't they before? Because the term atheos was used. They were to describe people that did not accept the gods locally. Like they used it to describe Christians.
Yeah,
I thought the term was much later, came about much later after Plato. I don't know.
The only thing is, I don't know. I mean, I'm trying to understand this question. I'm not sure if it would. Are there any other ways? So what they're saying is, how can Plato call the belief that gods can be influenced by prayer an atheistic one? He's saying like, hey, this idea that like gods can be influenced by prayer, that's like an atheistic idea. And he's trying to push Blake with that.
They're thinking that prayer, the gods that they accepted at the time, to think that you could influence their decisions by praying is to be something other than what those local gods were. And that's why it was atheistic, is because like the gods of the local area were ones that you couldn't influence by prayer. So if someone thought that you could influence God by prayer, they have some sort of atheistic philosophy in their sense of the term, something not of. So that's the etymological argument, right? So that's the root word for atheism is atheos, and so that's how the Greek term atheos was used back then.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. And Onus, thanks for your question. They said, my question was if they understand and can explain the difference between agnostic and Gnostic atheism.
Mine can't. I don't think that's a real thing, like in the sense of being useful in any way of distinct. Like I don't need to combine different labels to express some sort of unique concept. So gotcha. I don't even need the term Gnostic. Don't even need it.
Gotcha.
So I mean, agnostic atheist would be atheist who doesn't know God exists but believes God doesn't exist, and a Gnostic atheist would be an atheist who believes God definitely doesn't exist.
Knowledge implies belief.
Okay.
What do you mean?
You just asked what the terms are used. So again, belief doesn't make a difference. All that matters is what do they mean by the term. The correct usage is what do they mean by the term. Who cares about the philosophy? No one. No one does.
So we don't care about the epistemology that they're using. So we're trying to draw a distinction between knowledge and belief. Is that
no? We're just what do people mean by the term? That's what they mean by the term. That's it. That's how language works. Nothing else matters.
Gotcha. Next up. Want to say thanks so much for being here, folks. And it's been a true pleasure. So we really appreciate it. Always fun. Thanks so much to our speakers who have come on and spent their time with us tonight. It's been truly fun. And so, yes, thank you guys so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Same as always. Thanks for having us on.
Now, just for sick pleasure, because the debate is over, that question from Mind Onion on Plato, I didn't want to, I wasn't going to say it because I was like, well, am I like impartial if I say this? But so, he says like, hey, didn't Plato say that it's like an atheistic belief to say that the gods could be influenced by prayer? And he said like, so take that, Blake. But it seems to me that this objection would be like, just as much of a problem for Tom, because it seems to be saying that Plato thought that atheist in some way meant you believe in some gods, or at least one, because you believe that they could be influenced by prayer. So I'm not sure how this is like more damning for Blake than it is for Tom.
The original usage of the term atheist didn't specify whether or not it was a positive belief that gods did not exist, or it was just not tithing to the local gods. And so the original usage in Plato's sense, and what Socrates was convicted of the crime of atheos, it just meant not paying homage to the gods of the Romans. And so it didn't actually specify if you did, in fact, believe in a god or not. So the original usage of the term atheos, which is what atheist is derived from, didn't distinguish between lacktheist or disbelief, which is kind of the point, is that the current usage, like in the dictionary, this Google dictionary, of a disbelief or lack of belief is actually the correct historical definition. It didn't actually specify a positive rejection of a god until later. And so that's why Plato's users can use it in that more general sense as a lack theist kind of a definition, or a lack of the Roman theist position.
Gotcha. Disagreements, Blake? I didn't know. I'd heard.
I don't know.
Go ahead.
So it's an etymological and historical question that I just don't know.
Gotcha. The only reason I bring it up is I love like getting to like think about these like new things or hear these new things, and that's fascinating because I think I had heard from Steve, Tom's dad, that atheist, I thought he had said that it was first coined, but maybe he wasn't saying it was first coined, but maybe just like had a very early usage, in which I know that I've heard this from like historical studies of like the early Christians and the Romans, that Christians were sometimes called atheists.
Yep,
because they didn't believe in. So that's just interesting. I'm not trying to take sides or anything. It's just that I'm like kind of piecing it together myself, and I have not heard the other side, namely like what Steve would say about that, because I highly doubt Steve is persuaded by that, because Steve agrees with Blake.
Steve's an idiot, so.
So
I don't know.
it's good.
Sorry,
Go.
Certainly comment.
It's going to be a huge one if this one happens in Los Angeles, folks, in which TJump and Steve may sit across from each other and debate, and then eventually embrace each other, reuniting as family. So that would be a really fun debate. And so what were you saying, Blake? I didn't hear you, so sorry.
I'm so, are we, when we say Steve, are we talking about the agnostic Pope guy?
Yeah,
Yes.
Steve McRae.
Steve McRae, yeah. I don't know him very well, but I didn't want to comment on someone I didn't know.
You got it. Nick L. Olson, thanks for your super chat, just flew in. They said, Blake, is agnosticism dishonest too?
No, I don't think so at all. I think some people genuinely think that the question is indeterminate, that they do not believe that reason can come to bear any fruitful answer to this question. I just disagree with them. So it's just one of those things where I think the question is determinate and they believe it's indeterminate. So it's just another interesting way in which two non-theists can have an interesting discussion.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. We also had a question, last one, from Pine Creek, because I love Pine Creek. I love you, Doug. He says, question for Blake. You said that what determines the correct definition is how everyone uses it. If 99% of atheists used Tom's definition, would you be okay with it? How about 51%?
So yeah, so I would then concede that would be the ordinary sense of the term. So I would still then say that for my art, in my language game, for trying to get at the truth for its own sake, that my view is better. So nothing on my argument actually hinges on the ordinary sense of the term atheist. So the reason that it's even brought up is because one of the disadvantages that I think that Tom's view has is that he has this opportunity to introduce confusion into a discussion, whereas my view just doesn't run that risk. And so that's why it's important.
Gotcha. Thanks so much. With that, folks, I want to say We'll say goodbye again. Thanks so much for being here. I honestly just I hate saying goodbye because it's just so much fun. Really appreciate it. It's been a ton of fun tonight. I hope everybody has a great rest of your night. And one last final thanks to Tom and Blake for being with us.
Thanks again for having me.
Take care.